Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, a program that educates you about your rights and recourse to those violated. My name is Dumila Matez. The grave danger with legislative changes is that they can have unintended consequences. At the very least, they may be disruptive to commerce and cause confusion among consumers if the changes are not communicated well. It is clear the amendments of the National Credit Act have caused confusion with some consumers, believing a credit amnesty means you do not have to repay your debt. The amnesty has also caused anxiety among credit providers who are concerned that they would have less information to assess their risks in providing credit. However, credit providers' fears are unfounded, and debtors have little cause to rejoice, for although the amnesty marks a change in the type of information that the credit bureaus hold about your debtors' payment histories, there will still be information for credit providers to make use of. This is Rights and Recourse. Today we take a fresh look at the Credit Amnesty Act as amended that came into effect on April the 1st, 2014. Take it from me, it's no April Fool's joke. But before we get into the discussion, let us view this insert.
Millions of credit-active South Africans have impaired credit records. Consumers should benefit from the once-off clearance of an impairment record. Registered credit bureaus have 2 months in which to comply.
We focus quite a lot from an IT perspective to ensure that our processes were in place in order that on the 1st at midnight, all information relating to adverse information was removed from our database, or has been masked from our database, in preparation for the final removal on the 1st of June.
But there are some reservations regarding the amnesty.
25 million individuals don't have credit activity on their credit profile. So when you look at those individuals now going forward, it's difficult to assess if they're coming into the credit market, if they've benefited from the amnesty and therefore have a very thin file, or if they've always just had very limited information on the credit bureau. So those individuals now coming into the market might find it difficult to get credit.
Credit bureaus must also, on an ongoing basis, automatically remove this adverse information as soon as the debt is settled. The amnesty does not clear the debt. Consumers are still liable for outstanding debts.
To discuss the issues around the Credit Amnesty Act are Mr. Stephen Logan, Consumer Advocate, Ms. Mahaudam Patlele, CEO, National Debt Mediation Association, Ms. Neo Loweto, Public Relations Manager, Credit Ombudsman, and at our Pretoria studios, we have Ms. Louisa Hetisani, Manager, Credit Information at the National Credit Regulator. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
The first question that I have to ask, anyone, probably all of you can jot in and answer a piece of what concerns your area of expertise. There is a belief amongst consumers that the credit information amnesty means that they need not pay what they owe their creditors. Can we please get an unambiguous response to this confusion?
They definitely have to continue to pay the debt. It's just the information that relates to the debt that will be removed. The obligation to pay continues, and the rights of the credit provider to continue to enforce their right to get their money back will still continue to apply.
Do you want to add, Stephen? Probably.
No, there's not much more that can be added except to say I think COSATO and SACP would have loved to have the debt written off, and I just don't think it's possible because otherwise it would be an expropriation of credit providers' rights. So unfortunately, at least from consumer perspective, the debt has to be repaid.
Louisa, if I may bring you in here in Pretoria, what is adverse information? What do we regard as adverse information?
Okay, there's two subclasses of adverse information. The first one relates to the behavior of the consumer, and currently that information typically stays for about a year. Typical examples is a credit provider would list and say, that the consumer is a slow payer or the consumer is not contactable. The second subclass currently stays for 2 years and now reflects situations where the credit provider now starts taking action against the consumer. Typically, it includes codes like the consumer has been handed over or the account has been written off.
Does anybody want to add to that?
No.
Question, first of all, I should have probably asked, what role does the National Debt Mediation Association play?
Our role is to educate consumers about credit, their rights around credit, what are the type of things they need to think about before they take out credit. And when they are in trouble, they cannot pay, we help to mediate between them and the credit provider. So that could be either through mediation or debt counseling. We have a national helpline where we provide free information and advice to consumers because they don't understand a lot of the issues relating to credit. So we offer that helpline as well.
Now, I would imagine that the credit ombudsman, or the credit ombud, as some would like to call it, does the same sort of job, or?
Yes, to a certain extent, Dumile, but what we then do is also to assist consumers. If they've got problems with credit bureaus, they've been listed unfairly or incorrectly, or they have any kind of dispute relating to credit bureau kind of listings, they are able to contact our office. Our assistance is also free of charge. We also deal with any credit provider disputes. Maybe they've been garnished, they are being charged the incorrect interest amounts, or they've got a general dispute with a credit agreement. They can certainly knock on our door for free assistance.
If I'm not mistaken, Stephen, when the changes were mooted, they seem to have been very drastic and made reference to removal of judgments of consumers, and that were below 10,000 rand be removed irrespective of non-payment. Where did this all change? Looks like we have a completely new act from when we started.
It's not that different. I think there were three options that were first mooted, and the initial set of options included only removing judgments when they were less than a certain amount. But now the regulations talk to removing paid-up judgments irrespective of the amount. There was never a question of removing the judgment irrespective of payment. So the amnesty or the removal of adverse information is now very wide because it talks to any adverse information as defined rather than under a particular limit. So there are no conditions, and that's the big difference between the first attempt to do this and this attempt where effectively consumers don't have to apply. They don't have to do any work. This will be done for them by the credit bureaus in association with credit providers.
Louisa, there seems to be an uneasiness from credit providers and about the changes in the Act, and why? It should be understandable, probably.
Okay, the concerns relate to the fact that some credit providers felt that, they would lose the credit profile of the consumer, that it would weaken their decision-making processes. But the truth is that the payment profile itself, that reflects how a consumer is paying on a month-on-month basis, that is still going to stay, and that is a significant portion that credit providers use when they make their decisions. What is going to be removed is only adverse information, and like I explained earlier, it's only those two subclasses.
In my introduction there, Mahauta, I spoke about the fact that there is confusion in the market. The consumers are confused, the credit providers are angry. How is this being communicated?
Well, from our perspective, what we've seen news releases, we've seen press releases from the regulator and from the DTI. But, in the past week, we received about 400 inquiries, and that is growing from consumers who are saying, I don't understand how the process works. Like Stephen says, you don't have to go and pay somebody. And we already have people that are charging consumers and promising them, I will remove you by the 1st of April. It's a free process. You don't have to pay anybody. The credit bureau and the credit provider will communicate together, and that information will be removed. So they are confused about that. Then they are confused about, do I qualify to be removed? Because most consumers never took up the option, to get a free credit bureau report for free once annually. So they don't know what they are listed for. So they don't know whether they will qualify. So we are saying to them, go and check your credit credit bureau report, look at what is in there. And then some consumers don't even know what a judgment is. What is a judgment? You know, what is a default? What is a payment profile? So those are the kinds of questions we are answering. So it shows that there should have been, prior to the regulations being published, some educational campaign to say to consumers, this is exactly what this will mean. If you have questions, these are the places to go to call and ask questions.
Well, when we come back, we'll take on those questions around education with this matter, especially to consumers. And if you want to join this discussion, you can call us on 714-6919 or 18, or you can tweet us at Recourse. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. If you'd like to be part of the discussion, you can call us on 714-6918 or 6919 or tweet us at Recourse. We're dealing with the credit regulator, the new amnesty that's been promulgated by Cabinet and the Minister of Trade and Industry on the 1st of April. Louisa, there is a concern by consumers. Seems to be a lot of confusion. Probably you should respond to what Mahauta was saying here earlier, that education should have taken place before the enactment of the amendments on the Credit Amendment Act, whatever it's called.
Well, it's true that there is some confusion, and it's basically because of the way that consumers view the whole issue around credit bureaus. There typically is negative sentiment in South Africa around credit bureaus and what they do. So we tend to find that consumers, my apologies, don't normally want to know what sits in their credit report. They rather not know because they think that it's all bad. Hence the concept of blacklisting is still being used. And we see that again from our own statistics that we compile as the NCR, that on average about 146,000 people per quarter would typically go and request their free credit reports. When you compare that to about 15 million credit applications, so we still don't have enough consumers exercising their rights and seeking their free credit reports.
What is different from this amnesty to the amnesty of 2007?
Well, the big thing is that with the 2007 amnesty, you had conditions. So you had, for example, to find out how many adverse information listings were on your credit record. If you had one and it was under, I can't remember the amount, but it was under 500 Rand, say, it would be removed. In other words, it was very important that it be under a certain amount. If there were more than two, I don't think that any could be removed, and so on and so forth. So the reality is there were so many conditions attached that the credit ombud has gone public and said, I think now you could confirm it, but something like 12,000 calls a day are mainly telling people how they didn't qualify for it. So it was a huge waste of time. And I think this time round, it will definitely impact a significant number of people. The estimates are between 1.6 and 3 million people.
Well, currently, the people that are sitting in the category of adverse information, the one that Hetisani was just describing, is 3 million people that are sitting with adverse records. Then you have about 2.5 million people that are sitting with judgments and administration orders against their name. So because in the judgment category, it's difficult to say how many will qualify because you should have settled the judgment before it can be removed. But definitely for the adverse category, definitely 3 million people will benefit.
Yeah, and I think, that's also where we've also fielded quite a number of calls as well. I mean, we've even had people, the guys who are garnished, saying, am I also going to qualify from this? The answer is obviously no. But I think in terms of what Mahauta was saying, the percentage of people that will actually may stand to benefit, if you look at it from a percentage point of view, it's about 28%. And even then, it's only 15.3 that is confirmed will definitely qualify from this. Yes, so it's also trying then to tell the others that I've got an administration and is to say, but you do not qualify for this. So that's what we've been dealing with since the 1st of April, really.
Can you explain this administration part? You've got an administration. In other words, there's been a judgment taken against you.
Yes, look, in terms of the Credit Bureau Monitor statistics that the NCR has, you've got about, I think it's about 12.6% of people who fall within the ambit of having a judgment and administration. They're listed as such. So what is not quite clear is out of that percentage, I think it's about 2 million, as Mahauta said, how many of those people actually have judgments, how many actually fall under the administration bit of it, and even within the judgment section, how many people have actually paid up those judgments in order to qualify. So that has been quite big that we've been seeing coming
But just
through.
to explain, people must understand that a judgment and an administration order are two separate listings. An administration order sits on your credit bureau for 10 years unless you rescind it, and that it does not qualify for the amnesty. It's a separate process. So if you have an administration order against you, it will not be removed unless you go to court to rescind it or the retention period of 10 years expires.
We'll go back. I'm very happy that you brought up the issue of rescinding an order against you. We have a lawyer here who's going to tell us how you do that. But I'm told we've got a call out the line. Good afternoon and welcome.
I'm told we've got a call out the line. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hello?
Hello?
Do we have a caller?
Hello, Mr. Mateza.
Yes, go ahead and make your point.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Mr. Mateza, thank you for taking my call. And greetings to your panel and, of course, to a lady in Pretoria. Mr. Mateza, today's topic is very important. And I would like to be honest with you. Such interventions, they are way overdue. But however, I'm happy that it is happening today. Now, my question really is, what will happen to those people who actually supply information illegitimately to the service providers? And I'm asking this question at the back of my mind at this piece of legislation called POPI, Protection of Personal Information Act 2000, which is very much unclear in terms of the collection of information and what type of information it is being collected for and for use of that particular information. Mr. Matias, lastly say I can understand the confusion because of different role players report on different matters mixed with their own interpretation and understanding of such. Now, you said earlier on, this basically...
Just answer a question quickly, Mr. Pagi. Just answer a question very quickly.
Yes, my question really is, what is repeatable structures or that is now your panel there, what is that you will actually be doing to create such a complete awareness insofar as how exactly the removal of such from the credit bureau will influence or affect that is now the consumers. And remember, a well-informed consumer will definitely make a well-informed decision, sir. That's my take on it, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone can take that. I think now you'll be the best one to answer.
Yes, I think from an education point of view, everybody sitting around this table and so many other institutions within the industry are going out and educating consumers. But what I think we need to do is to continue for quite some time, even as the process is unfolding, to actually continue educating consumers. What is there as well, Dumile, is that I think when we come together as organizations, it would actually give the same message and people would actually understand it better. But a lot of education.
In other words, you mean there needs to be a road show?
Yes, unified.
Unified.
And speaking from the same hymn book, really. But
the official responsibility clearly lies with the National Credit Regulator, because officially, in terms of the regulations, they are responsible for implementing the regulations and monitoring compliance with the regulations. Organizations like us play a supporting role, and I think it's quite important that stakeholders come together and work together, because right now we are putting out fires. All of us are trying to do the best that we can to deal with the influx of calls and confusion. But I think the coordinating body is the National Credit Regulator.
Let's hear from Louisa. Louisa, you heard what was being discussed here in terms of education. What is your view?
Mahauta is quite right that the lead institution is the NCR, because we are the ones who are implementing the legislation. And Nell also touched on the issue of partnerships. That's why, for example, for the month of March, when we had Consumer Rights Month, we were partnering with the Ombud, and we did go out. I, for example, personally, was in Kimberley last weekend, where we were on the ground educating consumers. So the NCR is going to put in a lot of resources to ensure that we educate consumers on this. That's why you see our adverts on TV, you hear our adverts on radio. So it is going to be an ongoing effort. But in addition to that, when you look at the regulations, it states that the NCR has to have ongoing monitoring of this process and has to report back to DTI. So we do recognize that it's an important piece of the legislation, and we are putting resources in place to ensure that it's a success.
Stephen, at the time of the promulgation of the amendment to the Act, you were quoted as saying that the regulator was proposing a responsible and limited intervention that should not have an adverse impact on the price of supply of credit. Could you explain what you believe that this will not be the case?
Well, I think that there was a lot of concern initially that if you remove credit information, any credit information, you potentially cause such uncertainty in terms of the pricing of credit. It would be difficult for credit providers, and consequently they would price higher in order to make sure that their risk was covered. And I think that what the credit regulator with the department was able to do was to persuade Parliament that actually it would be inappropriate and actually quite risky and just bad for the industry to remove payment profile information, which was a call that had been made. And with the payment profile information, which is very detailed, it's between 24 and 36 months of detailed month-on-month payment information. That really does help credit providers to price adequately for the risk of default. And consequently, the removal of the adverse information, although it is valuable information, it's not the end of the world. It won't result in a significant change in calculating the risk. And so hopefully not.
We're told we've got a call on the line. Yeah. Let's take this call before we go to a break, and then we can answer the question when we come back from the break. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hello, sir. My name is Sam, and I would like to ask those where the office is for National Credit Regulator and the Credit Bureau in our area.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you for your question, Samuel. Louisa, that's a question for you, I think. Samuel in Limpopo wants to know, where is the office of the National Credit Regulator in Limpopo?
Okay, the office of the NCR is in Midrand in Johannesburg, but Samuel can go to his local Consumer Affairs office, because we've got partnerships with the provincial Consumer Affairs offices. Alternatively, he could contact our share call number, which is 0860 627 627.
0860-627-627. I hope they've caught that number. They will write it on the screen, and you'll see it on the screen. Samuel, thank you very much for your question. If you'd like to join us and ask questions like Samuel did, you can call us on 011 714 6919 or 714 6198, or you can join us on Twitter. Discuss with us all of these issues. Rights Recourse. We'll be back after the break.